Maria Donovan had once been a soldier, a real one. Not the kind people see in movies or video games, but the kind who had seen war with her own eyes, heard the screams of the injured, and lost her hearing in one ear when an IED exploded 3 feet away from her. She had served for years, proudly wearing her uniform, with her German Shepherd K9 partner, Ranger, always by her side. They had been through deserts, gunfire, dust storms, and lonely outposts together. They were a team, inseparable, trusted, loyal. But that was all in the past. Now, Maria lived a quiet and painful life in a small house outside town, far away from the battlefield. She had a wheelchair, a stack of pills, and nightmares that never left. Every night, the same dream returned. The blast, the screams, the blood, the sand. Ranger would whine in his sleep too, sometimes waking her up with his paws gently on her chest as if saying, "I'm here, you're safe." But Maria was never truly safe. Not from her memories, not from the past, not even from the people around. Her David Creel was her ex-boyfriend. They had been together for a while after she came back from the army. At first he was kind. He said the right things, made her laugh, took care of her. But slowly, his mask slipped. He didn't understand her nightmares. He made fun of her limp. He drank too much and got angry quickly. There were bruises. There were tears. Ranger never trusted him, not even in the beginning. He'd growl softly whenever David raised his voice. Eventually, Maria left. She moved out quietly one morning when David was away on a business trip. Ranger was with her, and they started over. She thought that chapter was closed. But David didn't want to be forgotten. He would call, he would send messages. Sometimes he'd show up at her doorstep, banging and shouting. She filed a restraining order, but he had money and connections. He wasn't afraid. Then, one cold evening in December, Maria woke up on her couch, sweating, confused, and scared. Her head pounded. She didn't remember falling asleep. Her medicine bottles were open on the table. Ranger was pacing in front of the door, barking loudly. There were flashing lights outside, red and blue, sirens, voices on a speaker telling her to come out with her hands up. She was pulled outside in handcuffs, stunned, trembling. Ranger was dragged away by an officer who didn't know better. Maria kept asking what was happening, but no one answered her. She was taken to the police station, fingerprinted, photographed, and locked in a cold room. Then they told her David Creel was dead, murdered, stabbed 14 times in his house, and the knife? Covered in her fingerprints. Maria didn't understand. She hadn't left her house. Her leg had been in pain for days. She had taken her sleep medication early and passed out. The last thing she remembered was feeding Ranger and locking the door. But the police showed her more. Her jacket was found near David's house. A neighbor claimed to have seen a woman in a hoodie going into David's place late at night. His blood was found on her shoes. Her court-appointed lawyer didn't believe in her innocence. She could see it in his eyes. Everyone looked at her, like she was a monster. The media had a field day. "From war hero to killer," the headline screamed. They showed old pictures of her holding a gun in uniform next to bloody crime scene photos. The reporters whispered about her PTSD, her past with David, her pain pills. No one listened to her side. No one wanted to. At the trial, she sat in her wheelchair, silent most of the time. The prosecution painted a story of rage, of a woman broken by war, unable to adjust, lashing out. They used her therapy sessions against her, her own journal entries where she wrote about her anger and confusion, her sleep disorder, her memory loss, her fear, twisted into weapons against her. She tried to speak. She tried to say she didn't do it, but the words didn't come out right. She sounded confused. The jury didn't understand her world. How could they? They didn't know what it meant to wake up at night smelling blood and dust, or to cry at fireworks. They didn't know what it felt like to be forgotten after giving everything for your country. Her only true friend, Ranger, wasn't allowed in court. He had been taken to a shelter during the arrest. Maria asked about him, begged for updates, but no one told her anything. She worried constantly. Was he okay? Did he miss her? Did he think she had left him? The day of the verdict came quickly. Too quickly. Guilty. The word echoed in her ears like gunfire. She stared straight ahead, too numb to cry. Then the sentencing. Death. It felt like the ground opened beneath her. Her lawyer tried to say they would appeal, but she wasn't listening anymore. All she could think about was Ranger. Would he die too? Would anyone care about him now? They moved her to a women's prison with a high-security death row section. She had her own small cell, a bed like a rock, and silence that screamed louder than bombs. She stopped eating. She stopped talking. The guards called her Sergeant to mock her. Sometimes they made jokes about her medal, now rusting in an evidence box. She started writing letters to Ranger in her mind. Not on paper, just in her head. I hope they feed you the soft kibble you like. Do you still have your squeaky toy? I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I failed you. In the cell, time meant nothing. Days blurred into nights. Her hands shook constantly. Her leg hurt. Her thoughts spiraled. She felt herself fading away. Every so often she'd dream of Ranger, his nose pushing against her cheek, his eyes full of worry. Those were the only moments she felt any warmth. Then one day she got a short message through her lawyer. Dog's been adopted by a shelter volunteer. He's doing okay. It wasn't much, but it gave her something to hold on to. She had no idea, though, that miles away her loyal friend was not okay. Ranger was not sitting quietly in a shelter. He was restless. He barked at strange people. He escaped his kennel twice. He kept returning to the edge of the woods near Maria's old house. He dug. He sniffed. He stared into the distance like he was searching for something no one else could see. And someone had started noticing. But Maria didn't know that. Not yet. In her cold cell, she sat staring at the wall, waiting for the end. Waiting for a world that had once saluted her to finally forget she ever existed. All she had was a name they ruined, a war they never understood, and a dog that still loved her, even when the whole world didn't. She didn't know that her dog was about to change everything. She didn't know the truth was still out there, buried beneath lies, waiting to be found by 4 paws and a heart full of loyalty. She didn't know she was still part of a mission, and the mission wasn't over. After Maria was taken away, Ranger's life changed completely. He was no longer with the person he loved most. His world had shrunk from the big house and the quiet woods to a small cage at the animal shelter. The shelter was noisy, full of barking dogs and strangers. Ranger, a proud and trained military dog, did not belong there. He was used to order, routine, and trust. Here, everything was uncertain. The first day was the hardest. Ranger paced back and forth, whined softly, and refused to eat. The shelter workers tried to calm him, but he only grew more restless. He kept scratching at the door, wanting to run back to Maria. He missed her soft voice, the way she petted him, the smell of her jacket. But most of all, he missed her calm presence, something no one else had. One of the volunteers at the shelter was Sarah Ung, a young woman with a kind heart and a deep love for animals. She had been volunteering there for several months, learning how to care for dogs, cats, and other pets who had lost their homes. Sarah noticed Ranger the moment he arrived. There was something special about him. His eyes were sad but sharp. His movements were precise and controlled. He was not just any dog. When Sarah took Ranger for walks, she saw his unusual behavior. Instead of enjoying the fresh air, Ranger seemed focused on certain directions, almost as if he was searching. Sometimes he would stop suddenly, sniff the ground intensely, and start digging with his strong paws. Sarah found it odd, but also fascinating. Ranger wasn't just a dog with PTSD or sadness. He was acting like he was on a mission. During one of their daily walks near Maria's old neighborhood, Ranger suddenly pulled hard on his leash, dragging Sarah towards a small wooded area. Sarah struggled to keep up, but Ranger was determined. He sniffed along the edge of the forest, eyes wide and alert. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, he started digging furiously in one spot. Dirt flew everywhere. Sarah called out to him but didn't stop him. She could see Ranger had found something important. After a few minutes, he uncovered a small box buried in the dirt. It was old, covered in mud and leaves. Carefully, Sarah opened it. Inside she found something strange. A torn piece of fabric that looked like part of a jacket, a flash drive, and some burned pieces of paper. Sarah's curiosity was instantly piqued. What was this doing buried here? She wrapped the items carefully and took them home, feeling like she was holding a secret. That night, Sarah connected the flash drive to her computer. What she saw surprised her. The drive contained encrypted messages, video files, and GPS logs. The videos showed people meeting in secret places, exchanging packages, and speaking in hushed voices. Some of the footage was shaky, like it was recorded by a hidden camera. Sarah recognized one man from the videos. He was wearing a mask, but his voice was familiar. She played the audio over and over. The encrypted messages hinted at illegal activities. It looked like a dangerous network. Sarah realized this was not just about a buried box. It was a clue to something much bigger. And Ranger had led her right to it. Over the next few days, Sarah watched Ranger carefully. The dog's behavior became more intense. He would bark at certain people passing by the shelter, especially those who worked in the nearby industrial area. Once, Ranger tried to escape again. Sarah caught him just in time, but it was clear Ranger was restless. He needed to find answers. Sarah began researching Maria Donovan's case. She read newspaper articles, court transcripts, and watched the news reports about the veteran convicted of murder. As she learned more, her heart ached for Maria. The more Sarah understood about Maria's life, her struggles with PTSD, and the evidence that didn't quite add up, the more convinced she became that Maria was innocent. But Sarah wasn't a detective or a lawyer. She needed help. Someone who understood both the military world and investigative work. That's when she thought of Tom Evers, a retired military investigator living in their town. Tom had worked with K-9 units for years and had once trained military dogs, including Ranger. He was tough but fair, with a sharp mind for puzzles and conspiracies. Sarah nervously reached out to him, explaining everything she had found and how Ranger was acting. At first, Tom was skeptical. He had seen many strange cases and had learned not to jump to conclusions. But when Sarah showed him the flash drive and videos, and when Ranger behaved aggressively around certain places and people, Tom started to believe there was more to the story. Together, Sarah, Tom, and Ranger formed an unlikely team. They began investigating quietly, knowing the risk of exposing powerful people. Their first step was to analyze the contents of the flash drive thoroughly. The encrypted messages were difficult to crack, but Tom's experience helped. They discovered that David Creel, the man Maria was accused of killing, was involved in illegal arms trafficking. He had been secretly selling weapons to shady groups overseas. Worse, he had connections to corrupt military contractors, people who had a lot to lose if Maria's story got out. Maria had tried to expose these crimes before her arrest. She had gathered evidence and tried to warn the authorities, but her past, her PTSD, and her volatile relationship with David made no one listen. Her voice was drowned out by accusations and the media's thirst for drama. Meanwhile, Ranger's instincts led the team to re-examine the timeline of the murder. The GPS logs from Maria's VA hospital bracelet showed she was at the hospital during the time the murder happened. This was something her defense lawyer had missed or ignored. They also noticed something strange about the murder scene. The blood patterns and the position of the weapons seemed staged. It was as if someone had planned the scene carefully to frame Maria. One day, Ranger stopped suddenly in front of an old army storage unit on the edge of town. The unit was rented under a fake name. Sarah and Tom checked the place carefully. Inside they found hidden documents, old military gear, and a camera that looked like it had been used for surveillance. When they watched the camera footage, their hearts skipped a beat. The video showed a masked man entering David Creel's house the night of the murder. He planted evidence and tampered with the scene while Maria was unconscious at home. Tom recognized the man from reports of a former mercenary named Travis Vaughn, who had worked in secret military missions and had a grudge against Maria. Ranger growled deeply as the video played. He remembered biting Vaughn during a mission gone wrong years ago. The pieces were falling into place. Sarah and Tom knew they had to act fast. They reached out to a trusted journalist who had a reputation for exposing corruption. They shared the evidence and the new facts about Maria's innocence. While the story began to spread, Maria was still locked away, slowly losing hope. Her health was failing, both physically and mentally. She wrote one last letter to Ranger, hoping her loyal friend would understand and find the truth. Then, everything changed. The viral news about Ranger, the shelter volunteer, and the secret evidence reached the public. People started to demand justice. Lawyers reopened Maria's case. Officials began investigating Travis Vaughn and his criminal network. Ranger's restless paws had dug up not just dirt, but the path to truth. The dog that never gave up on Maria was about to save her life. After Sarah, Tom, and Ranger had uncovered the secret box buried in the woods and the flash drive filled with encrypted messages and videos, they knew their investigation was only beginning. The clues pointed toward a much deeper conspiracy than they had first imagined. David Creel, the man Maria was accused of murdering, was far more dangerous than anyone had thought. And Ranger, with his sharp instincts and loyalty, was proving to be an invaluable partner. Sarah spent hours trying to decode the encrypted messages on the flash drive. They weren't just random words or codes. They contained detailed information about secret meetings, shipments of illegal weapons, and contacts between corrupt military contractors and criminals. Tom helped her by using his old contacts and military experience to make sense of the jargon and hidden references. They discovered that David Creel was at the center of an illegal arms trafficking ring. He had been selling weapons to groups that were banned by the government and were known for violence in several countries. The money was huge, and the risks were deadly. David was using his legitimate business as a cover, and he had many powerful friends protecting him. What shocked Sarah and Tom the most was that some of these friends were former military officials and contractors who had worked on classified missions. These people would do anything to keep their secrets safe, including murder. Meanwhile, Ranger's behavior became even more focused. Every time they followed him on a walk, he took them to places that seemed important but hidden to ordinary people. One day, Ranger led them to a small storage unit on the outskirts of town that was rented under a fake name. It was dusty and filled with old equipment, but as they searched carefully, they found several folders with documents, a GPS tracker, and a hidden camera. The camera contained footage from the night of the murder. Watching the video, Sarah and Tom saw a masked man sneaking into David's house. The man moved carefully, planting evidence and disturbing the crime scene. The footage proved that someone was trying to make it look like Maria had committed the murder, but it was all staged. Tom recognized the man on the tape. It was Travis Vaughn, a former mercenary who had worked in secret operations and had a personal grudge against Maria from their past missions. Ranger growled softly as if confirming that the man was dangerous and that the dog remembered him. Sarah and Tom knew they had to get this new evidence to someone who could help. They reached out to a local journalist, Maria's defense attorney, and a few trusted law enforcement officers who had not been involved in the case. They needed to reopen the investigation and stop the execution that was scheduled in just a few weeks. At the same time, Sarah kept visiting Ranger, who had become quieter but still watched her carefully with his sharp eyes. Ranger seemed to understand that things were changing, that justice might finally be within reach. Back in prison, Maria felt like she was disappearing. The days and nights all looked the same. Her body ached, her mind was exhausted, and the hopelessness of her situation pressed down like a heavy weight. She didn't know what was happening outside, but deep inside, a small spark of hope remained because of Ranger. She imagined him running free, searching for the truth. One day, her lawyer came with unexpected news. Someone was asking to reopen her case. There was new evidence, and it could change everything. Maria's heart pounded. Could it be true? Meanwhile, Sarah and Tom worked tirelessly to connect the dots. They discovered that David Creel had been threatening Maria because she had started to gather proof against his illegal business. She had been close to exposing the whole ring, which meant she was in danger. They also learned that the night of the murder, Maria had been drugged and unconscious. She had no memory because she was attacked before the real murderer came in. The neighbor who had reported seeing her near David's house had only seen a woman in a hoodie and assumed it was Maria, but it was someone else trying to frame her. All of these discoveries meant one thing. Maria was innocent. She had been set up by powerful people who wanted to silence her. The new investigation brought more attention to the case. The public began to question the original verdict, and many were shocked by the idea that a decorated veteran could be wrongly sentenced to death. The media started to tell a different story, one about bravery, loyalty, and a dog who never gave up. Ranger's story became a symbol of hope and justice. The pressure on the authorities grew. They couldn't ignore the new evidence. An official review was ordered, and the execution date was postponed. Maria received letters from strangers who believed in her innocence. She was slowly gaining strength and hope. She started to trust her lawyer and the people fighting for her again. One evening, Sarah brought Ranger to the prison gates. Maria saw him for the first time in months. Her eyes filled with tears as Ranger licked her face, his tail wagging gently. In that moment, Maria felt the world tilt back toward light. She was not alone. Ranger had found the truth, and she was going to get her life back, but the fight was not over yet. The team had to make sure. Travis Vaughn and the others involved in the conspiracy were caught and punished. They had to protect Maria from anyone who wanted to harm her or stop the truth from coming out. As the days passed, new evidence kept coming forward. Former military officials were questioned. Hidden accounts and secret meetings were uncovered. The case turned into a high-profile investigation, exposing corruption and lies. Ranger continued to play a crucial role. His ability to detect danger and follow hidden trails helped the team avoid traps and uncover new clues. He was more than a dog, he was a hero. Maria's story inspired many. Veterans, families, and animal lovers came together to support her. Fundraisers were organized to help her with medical care and legal fees. People wrote letters, shared stories, and demanded justice. For Maria, the journey was still difficult, but she no longer felt defeated. She was fighting back, with Ranger and her new friends beside her. The story was no longer just about a crime. It was about hope, truth, and the power of loyalty. Together, Maria, Ranger, Sarah, and Tom were rewriting the ending of a story that many thought was finished long ago. After the new investigation was officially opened, the atmosphere around Maria's case changed completely. What was once seen as a closed and tragic story now became a beacon of hope, justice, and the power of truth. The public was watching closely, and every new piece of evidence made the stakes higher. Maria was no longer just a prisoner fighting for her life. She had become a symbol of courage and resilience. The authorities who had originally rushed her conviction now found themselves under pressure. Lawyers, journalists, and activists demanded a full review of the case. It was clear that mistakes had been made, serious mistakes. Maria's defense team, now armed with the evidence uncovered by Sarah, Tom, and Ranger, pushed hard to prove her innocence. One of the most important discoveries was the hidden surveillance footage from the Army storage unit. The video clearly showed Travis Vaughn planting evidence at the murder scene. This was proof that Maria had been framed. But uncovering the truth was not easy. Travis Vaughn and his associates were dangerous and had powerful allies who wanted the case to stay closed. Sarah and Tom worked day and night to collect more evidence. They spoke to witnesses who had been too afraid to come forward before. Many people had seen suspicious activity near David Creel's house, but had stayed silent out of fear. With the case now in the spotlight, some were ready to tell their stories. One key witness was a neighbor who saw strange cars parked near David's house on the night of the murder. She noticed men wearing dark clothes moving around, but didn't dare call the police at the time. When she learned Maria was innocent, she finally decided to speak up. Another witness was a former employee of David Creel's company. He revealed that David had been involved in illegal deals and had threatened employees who asked questions. This information supported the theory that David's murder was connected to his illegal arms trafficking business. Meanwhile, Ranger continued to show his remarkable skills. His keen sense of smell helped the team find more hidden evidence. Once, he led Sarah and Tom to a small box buried near a lake. Inside were documents linking the illegal arms sales to a group of corrupt officials. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Maria had been targeted because she was close to exposing the truth. She had been silenced through false accusations and a staged crime scene. In prison, Maria felt a mix of emotions. She was hopeful, but also afraid. She worried about her safety and the safety of those helping her. But Ranger's visits gave her strength. Every time she saw him, she remembered that someone was fighting for her. Her health was fragile. The stress of prison life and the harsh conditions were taking a toll. Her lawyer arranged for special medical care and made sure she was treated with respect. Slowly, Maria began to regain some of her physical strength. The case moved to court. Again, and this time, it was very different. The new evidence was powerful, and the prosecution could no longer ignore it. The judge agreed to reopen the investigation and ordered a stay on Maria's death sentence. During the hearings, Sarah and Tom testified about their findings. They explained how Ranger had helped them find key evidence and how they uncovered the truth behind the murder. Their stories were compelling and showed the bravery and loyalty of a dog who refused to give up. Maria's family was there too, supporting her every step of the way. Her siblings spoke about her service in the military and the struggles she faced after returning home. They talked about her character, her kindness, and how much she deserved justice. The courtroom was filled with tension and emotion. The jury listened carefully as the defense painted a picture of Maria as a victim of a conspiracy. The prosecution had to admit that the original case was full of mistakes and assumptions. One of the most shocking moments was when the real killer, Travis Vaughn, was arrested. He had tried to disappear but was caught thanks to the efforts of the investigative team. He confessed to framing Maria and revealed the network behind the illegal arms trafficking. The confession was a turning point. It proved Maria's innocence beyond any doubt. The judge declared her not guilty and ordered her immediate release. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. People cheered and held signs supporting Maria. The media covered the story extensively, calling it a victory for justice and the power of loyalty. Ranger was there too, sitting quietly by Maria's side. The bond between them was stronger than ever. Maria knelt down and hugged her faithful companion. Tears ran down her cheeks as she whispered thanks to the dog who saved her life. After her release, Maria faced new challenges. She had lost years of her life and suffered physically and emotionally, but she was determined to rebuild her future. With Ranger by her side, she began attending therapy and working with veteran support groups. Her story inspired many people. Veterans who had felt forgotten reached out to her. Animal lovers admired the bravery of Ranger, and ordinary people saw hope in the idea that truth could win, even against powerful enemies. Maria also decided to use her experience to help others. She spoke publicly about her case, the problems in the justice system, and the importance of supporting veterans. Her message was clear: no one should be abandoned or silenced. Ranger became a symbol of hope and loyalty. He was awarded honors for his role in uncovering the truth. Sarah and Tom continued their work, helping other families who had been wrongly accused. The journey had been long and difficult, but it was far from over. Maria knew she still had to heal from the wounds of her past. She also wanted to make sure no one else suffered the way she did. Together, Maria, Ranger, Sarah, and Tom planned to create a foundation to support wrongly convicted veterans and promote the use of service dogs in the justice system. Their story showed the world that even in the darkest moments, hope and loyalty could shine through. Maria's life had been saved by a German Shepherd's love and courage, a reminder that sometimes heroes come with 4 paws and a wagging tail. After Maria was finally released, the world felt both strange and hopeful. For years, she had been trapped in a nightmare, locked behind cold prison walls, falsely accused and sentenced to death. But now, standing outside under the open sky, with her loyal German Shepherd Ranger by her side, she felt something she had not known in a long time: freedom. Yet freedom was only the beginning. There was so much to heal, to rebuild, and to fight for. Maria's first days outside were difficult. The prison had taken more than just her liberty. It had stolen her health, her confidence, and many pieces of her life. Her body ached, weak from years of poor treatment and stress. Her mind was clouded with painful memories, nightmares, and the constant fear that the nightmare might return. But through it all, Ranger was her constant companion, her protector, her friend, and her anchor to reality. Ranger never left her side. When she felt overwhelmed, he would gently nudge her hand or rest his head on her lap. He seemed to understand her feelings without any words. The bond between Maria and Ranger grew even stronger, built on trust, love, and shared hardship. Soon after her release, Maria began therapy. She met counselors who specialized in trauma and PTSD, conditions she had struggled with even before her arrest. Therapy was not easy. Sometimes Maria had to relive the darkest moments of her life, but she knew it was necessary for healing. With Ranger sitting quietly nearby during sessions, she felt safe enough to open up about her fears, anger, and hope. As she regained strength, Maria wanted to give back. She knew her story was unique, but also not uncommon. Many veterans, especially those with invisible wounds like PTSD, were often misunderstood and left to suffer alone. Some faced harsh punishments, lost jobs, and broken families. Maria decided to speak out, not just about her own fight, but about the need to support and protect veterans everywhere. She began attending events, speaking at support groups, and sharing her story with the media. Her honesty, courage, and determination touched many people. Veterans who had once felt invisible now saw someone who understood their struggles and was fighting for change. Maria also wanted to honor Ranger's role in saving her life. She worked with Sarah and Tom to establish a foundation dedicated to training service dogs for veterans and wrongly accused individuals. The foundation aimed to provide not only support for those in need, but also to educate the public about the powerful bond between humans and dogs. Ranger became a symbol of hope and healing. He attended public events, met with children and veterans, and helped raise awareness about service animals. Maria often said that Ranger was more than a dog. He was her hero, her guardian angel. While Maria's public work grew, she also focused on her personal life. She reconnected with her family, who had never stopped believing in her innocence. The years of separation had been painful, but love and forgiveness helped heal old wounds. One of the biggest challenges Maria faced was rebuilding her identity outside prison. She was a veteran, a survivor, and now an advocate, but she had to rediscover who she was beyond the labels. Slowly, she started taking small steps, returning to hobbies she had loved, like painting and hiking. Ranger joined her on these adventures, his joyful energy helping her find peace in nature. Maria's story also brought attention to flaws in the criminal justice system, especially regarding veterans. Many experts and lawmakers began discussing the need for better support for veterans facing legal troubles. Maria testified at hearings and worked with organizations pushing for reform. She believed that no one else should suffer the way she did. Her journey inspired others who were wrongly accused or struggling with trauma. Letters poured in from people around the country, thanking her for her courage and offering their own stories. Maria read every letter, finding strength in knowing she was not alone. But the fight for justice was not without obstacles. Some people still doubted her story or refused to accept the new truth. Old enemies from the illegal arms network lurked in the shadows, trying to intimidate Maria and those helping her. Threats and warnings reminded her that danger was never far away, yet Maria was not afraid. With Ranger, Sarah, and Tom by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Their friendship had become a family, a team united by loyalty, trust, and a shared mission. In time, Maria began to explore new opportunities. She trained to become a counselor for veterans dealing with trauma, using her own experience to guide and comfort others. Her work brought meaning and purpose to her life, transforming pain into hope. Ranger continued to train new service dogs, passing on the lessons he had learned from his years with Maria. Together, they helped veterans regain confidence, independence, and joy. Maria's foundation grew, attracting donations and volunteers who shared their passion. The group organized workshops, therapy sessions with dogs, and community events that celebrated the bond between humans and animals. The impact was profound, changing lives and inspiring communities. As the years passed, Maria never forgot the moment her life changed, when Ranger's instincts uncovered the truth that saved her from death. She often reflected on how a dog's loyalty had brought light into her darkest hour. Their story reminded the world of the importance of trust, courage, and second chances. It showed that even in the face of injustice, love and perseverance could prevail. Maria's journey was far from over, but she faced the future with hope. She had learned that life could be cruel and unfair, but it also held moments of kindness and miracles. Ranger, with his gentle eyes and steady presence, was a daily reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes don't wear capes. They have 4 paws and a wagging tail.